Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Wayne County Commission meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Daub has requested an excuse. Thank you. You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next item.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Could everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Next item, please.
Invocation.
Invocation. I'm happy to ask Commissioner Clark Coleman to introduce our invocator for this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is my pleasure to introduce Reverend Carnell H.L. Richardson, who accepted Christ into his life and was baptized at 7 years of age at the Greater New Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church in Detroit by the esteemed and late Reverend Dr. Benjamin L. Hooks. Reverend Richardson received and accepted his call to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ as a teenager. Since that time, Reverend Carnell has been faithful to this ministry assignment, and it has afforded him the opportunity to preach in various pulpits and speak at various conferences. Reverend Carnell currently serves in a dual role as the lead pastor minister and youth and young adult pastor of the New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church in Detroit. In addition to those responsibilities, Reverend Richardson serves as the director of the New Prospect After School program. Reverend Carnell considers his most influential pastor and leader to be the late Reverend Dr. Wilmer Johnson, who we currently refer to as Dr. J. In 2007, Reverend Richardson joined the New Prospect Missionary Baptist Church under Dr. Johnson's leadership and served for several years as part of the pastoral staff. Reverend Richardson has dedicated much of his professional career to public service, which has included staff roles in the nonprofit, city government, public services, which he included staff roles in the nonprofit, city government, education, and religious sectors. This man of God works diligently to respond to the spiritual and social needs of the youth and young adults who have been entrusted in his care. Reverend Richardson has earned an associate degree in teacher education, a Bachelor of Arts degree in English with a minor in communications from Ferris State University. Also, Reverend Richardson has earned a master's degree in Christian formation and divinity and is currently pursuing a doctorate of education from Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids. Reverend Richardson makes it his priority to lend his time and talent to serve in both executive leadership and general capacities for organizations such as the Council of Baptist Pastors of Detroit and vicinity, the American Baptist Churches of Michigan, the American Red Cross, the Boy Scouts of America, and the Business Professionals of America. Would you join me in welcoming to the podium the Reverend Dr. that was a fraudulent slip. He will be soon. Reverend Carnell H.L. Richardson.
Good morning to all of you. That was way too much for me. Let us open our meeting in prayer. Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for allowing us to be here this morning. We do not take it for granted that you are the creator of mankind, and you are our sustainer. As we gather here in this chamber to discuss important business, we thank you for the gift of living in a democracy. And we thank you that you have placed individuals in positions to make sure that our democracy remains in place. Bless every commissioner as they make important decisions. Bless us as a community to support one another so that this world, this city, this county can become a better place. In your name we pray, amen.
I should also have mentioned, this is our chair's church home.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. Proud to be a member of New Prospect Baptist Church since I was 12 years old. Thank you, Reverend Carnell. Next item, please.
Correcting and approval of the journal.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Ware.
Move approval.
Vice Chair Palmero. Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Report from the chair.
Thank you. I would like to turn the meeting over for a special presentation to Commissioner Al Haydus.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's a happy day after this wonderful prayer today. And it is great when you have somebody in the green in the audience, you bring them up to the podium with you to compliment somebody who really labeled as a blue, graduate from the Law School of Michigan. I would like to invite Commissioner Killeen to join me to honor the great friend who I really feel blessed to have a friend like her, Barbara Miller. Barbara Miller, she practiced law in Belleville almost for 40 years and lived in a wonderful home in Belleville Lake built by her father. And very involved in the community where she put her energy, her wealth of knowledge, her money, and her energy to make Van Buren, Belleville area a better place to live. I have a great honor to invite Barbara Miller to the podium. As you know, Mr. Killeen, he's a retired teacher, and as a former student in my life, I always listen to the teacher. They tell me to get up and read or add, whatever you do. Today, I have the honor and the privilege to ask him to read the resolution.
Oh. You didn't tell me to bring my glasses.
On your mind.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. There they are. Also a teacher thing. You stand up in front of the classroom, you go, where's my pencil? And high school freshmen are like, it's behind your ear, Mr. Killeen. So I am delighted to be here with Al and Barbara. I sit on the Arts Authority Board with Barbara and got to know her through there. So this is a resolution honoring Barbara Rogel Miller, retiring following a distinguished legal career. Whereas it is with great pride that and pleasure that we, the members of the Wayne County Commission, pause to recognize Attorney Barbara Rogel Miller, who is retiring after a distinguished 40-year career at her practice in Belleville, Michigan. And whereas Barbara Rogel Miller is a longtime Belleville resident, living in a home built by her father, and is an active member of the Wayne County Arts Council, the Belleville Arts Council, and the Detroit Institutes of Arts Authority Board. Whereas Barbara Rogel Miller holds a bachelor's degree in English from Marygrove and a master's in education from the University of Notre Dame, which she attended as a Ford Foundation Scholar. And whereas Barbara Rogel Miller taught school in Indiana before returning to Michigan to help run her family's tavern, and has also attended the University of Michigan. Oh, you finally went to a non-Catholic school, huh? Whereas Barbara Rogel Miller received her law degree from the University of Michigan in 1979 and began her long-running law practice, which is relocating to Canton, Michigan upon her retirement from litigation. And whereas Barbara Rogel Miller will continue to be active in the arts community as well as the Belleville community post-retirement, therefore, be it resolved that this resolution endure as a lasting record of respect and admiration for the legal career of Barbara Rogel Miller. We extend our best wishes for a long and happy and blessed retirement. I'll get over on this side. You got it,
Brevity is the watchword at this moment. Thank you very much. I'm very honored. I have spent my life working in my community gratefully. Thank you very much. That's very nice. Thank you.
I think you all know Patty. She insists on saying a couple words as an old friend of Barbara Miller. So, with the permission of the chairperson.
Thank you so much for this moment. I just have to recognize Barbara beyond the words. There is such a wonderful human spirit that helps everyone. Barbara has been the spark plug of the Wayne County Arts, History, and Humanities since the McNamara administration. It was started, and he gave us $30,000 to start with, and secretarial help and support. And since that time, we've had to struggle Barbara came up with the idea, let's have the elected officials would have parties, and we would have silent auctions, and we'd make $2,000. People love to have a drink, and they buy something, and they buy something else. We'd go to the Salvation Army and buy things, and then we'd put them out there and sell them. But we've made a lot of money doing that. And so Barbara's been the spark plug for that. Barbara's come up recently also with another good idea that with the Wayne County Art Authority, which we're pursuing, is to organize and produce a list of all cultural organizations in Wayne County. And it would be put on the Wayne County website as well as the Wayne County Art, History, and Humanities website. We're working around, maneuvering around trying to get this done. And without Barbara and those ideas, that's why we need any assistance that you can think of. But the other thing that Barbara and I have done with the Wayne County Art Authority, we got art at the airport. For years, we tried to get art at the airport. Everybody said, Betty, you know all the people at the airport. I couldn't get it done. But all the stars lined up right with the DIA involved, and we got art at the North Terminal. And when you go in the North Terminal, it looks like the DIA. It's so beautiful. And when we were around silently walking with Chad Newton, and we could hear people. They didn't know who we were. They were saying, "Wow, we didn't know Detroit had this. We didn't know this was in Detroit." So it has lifted the whole image of Detroit and Wayne County and southeastern Michigan up. And that was another idea of Barbara's. So we really have a lot to thank Barbara for. She's a wonderful human being, and she's lucky we're in Wayne County, not in Oakland County. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you again, Ms. Miller, for your inspiration, for your dedication, and really helping us understand the importance of art. Thank you so much. We're inspired by you and your service to Wayne County. Thank you, Commissioner Jesus, for doing that for Ms. Miller as well. Next item, please.
Unfinished business, there is none listed. We're moving to offering of all petitions, ordinances, resolutions, and presentations. There are 2 items listed. Item number 1 is a resolution by Commissioner Bell recognizing March 2020 as National Women's History Month.
Approval.
Moved and supported. As you all know, March is Women's History Month, and this year's theme is Valiant Women of the Vote, celebrating the brave women who fought to win suffrage rights for women and for women who continue to fight for the voting rights of others. So that is very, very appropriate this year as we go into our presidential elections, and as we have every year, making sure that all those people who would want to vote, that we don't have barriers to them exercising their right to vote. So I'm very happy to have this resolution before us as we again celebrate Women's History Month for 2020. Any further discussion? It was moved and supported. Yep. Discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Ware. The request is to open the board for sponsorship. Of course, let us know when the board is ready for co-sponsorships.
The board is now open for co-sponsors. Co-sponsors duly noted.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item number 2 on page 2 is a presentation by Kathleen O'Neill from the Gaelic League.
Thank you. I would like to call Commissioner Tim Killeen to the front. As you know, it is March and St. Patrick's Day is on the 17th. We will have our board meeting after the 17th, so we want to celebrate that on today. So we now have a presentation from Commissioner Killeen and Kathleen O'Neill.
Try not to take your agenda this time. Yeah. Murphy goes into the confessional box after years of being away from the church. He pulls aside the curtain and hits the kneeler. There's a fully equipped bar with crystal glasses, the best vestry wine, Guinness on tap, cigars, and liqueur chocolates nearby. On the wall is a fine photographic display of various women who have appeared to have misplaced their garments. He hears the priest come in. Father, forgive me, I think it's been a while since I've been in confession, and I must say the confessional box is much better than it used to be. Father replies, get out, you idiot, you're on my side. Paid Mila Falcha 100,000 welcomes. As the chair mentioned, thank you, Madam Chair, for a little time on the agenda for this. As St. Patrick's Day is rushing up on us, and we have with us Kathleen O'Neill from the Gaelic League, the Irish American Club down on Michigan Avenue there, right 14th. And it's a special year for the Gaelic League, so I invited her over to talk about the Gaelic League, a little bit about the history of the Irish in Detroit and Wayne County. And I would bet, Ms. O'Neill, that somewhere in the Kathleen O'Neill is also an Ann or a Mary, somewhere in there. I would just bet on that. But so please welcome Kathleen O'Neill from the Gaelic League.
Thank you. Yes, there are Kathleens and Anns and Marys and Patricks and all that. But I thank you for inviting us here. It is an exciting year, the Gaelic League. How many of you are aware of the Gaelic League on Michigan Avenue? There's many a party there with the county and city employees. It has been at that location for the last 70 years. Started In 1920, at 6 in Abbott, 50 Irish-born men gathered. There was lots happening in Ireland at the time, fighting for their independence, freedom from England, and they met. There was the Gaelic League in Ireland that was formed in 1893, wanting to preserve the Irish culture and particularly the language, because if you do not have a language, you do not have an identity. And so Douglas Hyde and others formed it. They traveled to all parts of the world where the Irish had settled, and different groups formed, and we are one of the ones that has lasted for now 100 years. Moved to 12th and Grand River above the Troy Laundry, which they thought was going to be a 3-year lease, went to 6 years. All of a sudden there was the Depression, and they lasted there for 30 years before they could regather enough funds to purchase a building. And ironically, the building that they purchased, which we are located at now, was purchased from the Ford Motor Company. And here, 70 years later, they're coming back into the neighborhood at the train station. So it's like full circle. There's a couple of things on the board. One is it's just the size of Ireland. It's about the size of Rhode Island. So it's not a very large country, but it has had a lot of immigrants come to the United States and also to Michigan. On the other side, there's a couple things. The logo of the Gaelic League, which is similar to the one in Ireland, with the 4 provinces in a directional north, east, south, and west shape. And then in the middle, it says, it has Chirinchanga, which is land of languages. It was one of the first countries that recorded their history. They have been writers, and the bards and the poets were very, very concerned and wanted to be able to write the history of Ireland accurately. So that's part of it. There is also a book there. That is a book that was written for the Detroit's 300th anniversary. Every group was wondering what they could do. And at the Gaelic League, we decided we were going to open an Irish archives at the Burton Historical Museum, not museum, a collection at the Detroit Main Library. And as things were coming in, it was like, oh my goodness, not everyone's getting down to the library. Not everyone is going to know about this event or this picture. So it's a kind of a pictorial history of the first 80 years of the Gaelic League. And some of the fascinating things, one of them that I was very impressed because the picture happened to have one of my cousins who's deceased, but Michael Flatley, who we're all familiar with river dance, his grandmother taught Irish dance at the Gaelic League. And his mother was in the class with my cousin, and then they eventually moved on to Chicago. But I want to talk a little bit, as mentioned, of the effect that the Irish have had in Detroit. And one of the things, there's a couple books, there's a lot of books about Detroit Irish. This is Modern Journeys, though. I don't know if the first or second edition, but it's from the United Irish Societies, who puts on the annual St. Patrick's Parade. And this is how they describe the Irish and the Irish in Detroit. They're people with the P professions: painters, plasters, and plumbers, policemen and publicans, printers, politicians, and priests. So that gives you, they're the service people. They're the laborers, they're the workers. There's another book that Seamus and Eileen Metris, they're a couple that are professors at the University of Toledo, that wrote about the Irish in Michigan. And they divided the wave of the immigrants coming over into 5 different categories. So I'm just going to be real brief, but the first one was the colonial period from 1640 to 1815. These immigrants left Ireland because of commercial restriction on the economic development and religious discrimination. They were suffering from the penal laws, which, if you're familiar with Irish history, they were not allowed to practice the religion, no longer to speak the Irish language. Children couldn't go to school, couldn't own property if you were a Catholic. There were numerous rules, so many of them left at that time. The next section was the pre-starvation era of 1815 to 1845. This is the time where the canal systems were built mainly by Irish, and it was a great route to the Great Lakes and to Detroit, where there were a lot of jobs, a lot of employment opportunities. So there was this steady stream of Irish immigrants that came to Michigan. Most of these were education professionals. One of them was George O'Keefe. He came from County Cork, immigrated in 1860 and settled in Detroit in 1818. He was a lawyer, a judge, and founder chairperson of the St. Patrick's Day festivities. He served as their president of the Friends of Ireland and founder of the St. Patrick's Society in 1829. The next fellow that was during this period actually wasn't in Detroit, but had a big effect on Michigan, and this is Charlie O'Malley. He came from County Mayo in 1836. He started or established an Irish settlement on Mackinac Island. He owned a grocery store in 1840. In 1846, he was elected Mackinac's rep to the Michigan legislature, and in 1843, he had the duty of naming some of the northern counties that were all under the Mackinac County. He named 4 of them after ones in Ireland, and that was Antrim, Clare, Roscommon, and Wexford. A 5th county he named Emmett, after the Irish nationalist and rebel leader, Bold Robert Emmet. Michigan is the only state that has counties named after counties in Ireland, thanks to Charlie O'Malley. Robert Elliott is another one that had a big influence. He was from County Tipperary. He was an architect and builder, came in 1834 because he was discriminated in Ireland. Sadly, he died after 6 years of being in a construction accident, but he was elected associate judge for Wayne County. He established the Elliott Immigration Office, and this business arranged passage and kept records of over thousands of Europeans who immigrated. After his death, fortunately, his son, Richard Elliott, continued the business. The next part was the starvation years. There was the Great Famine in Ireland from 1845 to 1855. These immigrants that came over were destitute and possibly the most illiterate. A significant one of them came to cities, farming, and mining areas. The largest group of immigrants in Detroit at that time, or that came here because it was an established Catholic city, thanks to the French, and they weren't faced with the hostilities that they found on the East Coast. And that's the sign that you see there, no Irish need apply. That is recent, that was 1915, 105 years ago in the Boston Globe. There was still discrimination going on. So many of these famine Irish came to Detroit because they didn't have that. There was a Catholic church here with St. Anne's Church. They dug canals, as I mentioned. Then after that, the post-starvation years from 1855 to 1920, they mainly settled in communities, mostly educated. They placed a priority on schooling. 74% of the children in 1850, between the ages of 5 and 16 years old, were attending school. This was new, this was different. This is what the Irish wanted. They wanted their children to have that education that they weren't allowed in Ireland. There were a variety of jobs here. You could be a business owner, a laborer, a drayman hauling coal, wood, and other freight to and from the docks and railroad cars. They helped build the railroad business and then ran them. They mined and homestead. There were, as I mentioned, the judges, the doctors, the architects. More single women came to or immigrated during this time because of the poor conditions and civil unrest in Ireland. They became the maids or the domestics. They worked in the clothing industry. They worked in boarding houses. Detroit's first elected Irish-born mayor was in 1858, Mayor John Patton. He was actually a popular carriage maker that was born in County Down, but came to Albany, New York with his family as a teenager, and then came on to Detroit. Patton was involved in the St. Patrick's Day festivities. He was a long-serving president of the St. Patrick's Benevolent Society. 1899, the Lord Mayor of Dublin came to Detroit. Number of years. The first Prime Minister, Emma de Valera, also visited Detroit. During the Civil War, the 15th Michigan Infantry was also known as the Irish Regiment. And it was estimated over 4,000 Irish born and many more Michigan Irish Americans served in the Union Army. Gotta go?
Kathleen's giving you that.
Oh, give me a timeout. All right, real quickly, one more thing about this time period. Detroit was known as the nation's stove capital, and it was the Dwyer brothers that were sons of Irish immigrants that founded the Detroit Stove Works Company. I guess I could go on many more, but I have my timekeeper back there, and I haven't even gotten to introduce Kathleen Quinn Partika. Her grandfather, and in this other part, was a big part of the labor movement. Patrick Cornelius Quinn, also known as C-Pat Quinn, was the one that led the 1937 sit-down strike at the Dodge, Main. So much more to share with you. We have a lot of things going on at the Gaelic League. There's lots of books. I guess we're going to be upstairs later. Love to talk to you, and we thank you for giving you this time. Oh, yeah, and Kathleen has made some brown bread and some soda bread that you're welcome to taste a little bit of an Irish treat. So thank you very much for having us. Sorry.
Thank you, Kathleen. No, not at all. Yep.
That's my.
Yeah. Oh, he does want photos.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
This is the time where, like we just saw, that I'd be presenting you with a proclamation and all of that for the 100th anniversary, but befitting of the culture, we're running a little late on that. But there's a big event in Livonia next week, and we'll have a proclamation for you there.
Well, I was going to say, if you keep in mind, in October, we're opening a 3-month display at the Detroit Historical Museum. October 16th is opening night, but it'll be there through October, November, December. And then December 5th, we're having our gala 100th anniversary ball.
Yeah,
all right, so you can do something then.
Very good.
If you run real late.
Kathleen, thank you so much. And as we say, you have the map of Ireland on your face. And I'm going to wrap this up real quick. As Kathleen described, Ireland has always been a peasant nation. I mean, dirt floor, peasant, 85% of the population. Kathleen gave you a little hint as to what our friends across the Irish Sea imposed on Ireland for 500 years. And instead of an Irish blessing to wrap things up here, a couple of months ago I ran across, and I forget where I ran across it, but it was a little stanza out of what an old Irish song, and it just spoke to me. And we talked, the Irish talk about feeling the soul of Ireland, and it definitely spoke to me on that. Took me a little research. I found it in the Princeton archives, the entire thing. So, and it's entitled Irishman's Shanty. We have the Shanty Irish, and then we have the Lace Curtain Irish. But overwhelmingly, the country was Shanty Irish. Did you ever go into an Irishman's shanty? Oh boy, that's the place where whiskey is plenty. With his pipe in his mouth, there sits Paddy so free, no king in his palace is prouder than he. You have to think 18th century Ireland here for this. There's a 3-legged stool with a table to match, and the door of the shanty is locked with a latch. There's nice feather mattresses, all bustin' with straw. For the want of a bedstead, it lays on the floor. There's a snug little bureau without paint or gilt, made of boards that was left over when the shanty was built. There's a three-cornered mirror hangs on the wall. The devil of face has been in it at all. He has pigs in the sty and a cow in the stable, and he feeds them on scraps left over from the table. They'd starve if confined, so they roam at their ease and come in the shanty whenever they please. He has 3 rooms in one, kitchen, bedroom, and hall, and his chest is 3 wooden pegs on the wall. 2 suits of old clothes make his wardrobe complete, one to wear in the shanty, the same for the street. He can relish good victuals as you ever ate, but is always contented with potatoes and meat. He prefers them when cold if he can't get them hot, and he makes tea in a bowl when he can't get a pot. There is one who partakes of all his sorrows and joys, attends in the shanty the girls and the boys. The brat thinks he's more of than gold that's refined, but Biddy's the jewel that's the set in his mind. The rich may divide their enjoyments alone with those who have riches as great as their own. But Pat hangs the latch string outside the door and will share his last cent with the needy and the poor. Thank you very much. We'll see you up on 7 after the meeting. We'll have a little Irish soda bread, and we'll have the 2 things that were up here also. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. It's always wonderful to get a history lesson as a lover of history, to see how the Irish immigrants made an impact here in Detroit and Wayne County is always good to hear about. So thank you, Commissioner Killeen, for bringing that to us. We look forward to having some bread upstairs during our luncheon.
The parade is a week from Sunday, by the way. I forgot to mention.
Thank you, Commissioner. Madam Clerk, next item.
And on page 2 of the agenda, reports from committees. Report A is from the Committee on Economic Development. There are 3 items listed.
Commissioner Haydes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move to have all the 3 items to receive and file.
Moved and supported. Any discussion on these 3 receive and file items? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And just, I'm sorry to let you know this, but the humming noise that we hear is work that they're doing on the Woodward building next door to us. So, you know, they're doing construction for what's going to be there after they're done. So that's what that humming is. Hopefully it will not be here at the next full board meeting, or we'll notify them when we meet so that they won't do that kind of work to interrupt our meeting. Next item, please.
Report B from the Committee on Public Services. There are 15 items listed on pages 2 through 7 of the agenda.
Commissioner Marecki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to thank Commissioner Ware for taking over last meeting because I was sicker than a dog, so I appreciate that. I'd like to receive and file items 1 and 2 and move for approval items 3 to 15.
Moved and supported. Any discussion on the public services report?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you. I just wondered if there's anyone here from, I guess it would be DPS. Item number 11, I had a question about.
Item number 11, is there anyone here from DPS who can address? This is professional engineering services for Inkster Road.
Ron Agasinski from Engineering Division.
Ron, I appreciate you being up here. I just wanted to ask if you're any sense of how long this would when this would actually be completed.
This is for the design project. Construction will be in 2021.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion on the public services report? Hearing none, please vote. Next item, I'm sorry.
Motion carries.
Next item.
We are on Report C from the Committee on Ways and Means. There are 11 items listed on pages 7 through 9 of the agenda.
Commissioner Varga?
Thank you. I would like to ask to have items 1 through 5 and 7 through 11 approved, and I would like to ask Kelly to come to the podium on item 6.
It's been moved. Is there support?
Support.
Management and Budget Director, we would like to ask the commission to withdraw item number 6.
All right, thank you. Noted. Item 6 is being asked to be withdrawn. Okay. Commissioner Varga?
I concur.
Thank you. Any discussion on the remainder of the report for Ways and Means? Any discussion on the Ways and Means report? Hearing none, please vote. Okay, next item.
Motion carries. We are on page 9 of the agenda, Report D from the Committee on Health and Human Services. There are 2 items listed.
Commissioner Colleen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee does have 2 reports for you, or 2 items for you to consider today, but as I discussed with you, Madam Chair, Lisa Whitmore Davis, Director of our Senior Division, is here today. It's National Nutrition Month, so after the 2 items, we'll have her have a couple of comments. You have a PowerPoint at your desk. I will move the 2 items for approval. I will note that item 2, where that was contingent upon the documents being properly labeled, that has been taken care of, so both these items are ready to move forward, and I move them for your approval.
Support.
It's been moved and supported for the Health and Human Services report, items 1 and 2. Any discussion on those items? Discussion, hearing none, please vote.
Carries.
Ms. Whitmore? Whitmore Davis? Turn on your microphone for us.
There's a button at the base, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chairwoman Bell, and thank you, Commissioner Colleen. You have a short PowerPoint that I will refer to, but I want to just quickly move through this presentation because it's important information. March is also Nutrition Month, and it is an important social determinant of health for everyone, especially persons who are over the age of 65. Meeting the diet and nutritional needs of older adults is therefore crucial to the maintenance of health, functional independence, and quality of life. Here at Wayne County Senior Services, we are an important component in the nutrition of some of the county's most vulnerable older adults. And for over 34 years, you'll see our beautiful color infographic that talks about some of the facts regarding our program. And I'm happy today to have members of our staff here with me, Ms. Jones Servakis and Maisha Haddon, who are members of our team there at our office. I want to thank them both for joining me today, but unable to join with me today are 900 volunteers who are out right now serving, packing meals, serving congregate meals, and getting their supplies ready to go deliver to 34 cities across this beautiful county. So we are the nutritional lifeline to vulnerable older adults. They are vulnerable from the standpoint of being nutritionally insecure and isolated, or a combination of both of them. And Ford Motor Company did a study this year, and it talked about how 45% of Americans feel lonely. And loneliness is a great deterrent to our overall health. So the Home Delivered Meals Program, the Congregate and Liquid Meal Program serve over 3,000 people daily. And I just want to really heighten your awareness that our Halal Home Delivered Meal Program has provided culturally competent meals for over 10 years to the Arab American elders in our county. So we just want you to be aware of that, and again, bring forward there is no wait list for our program. So looking at the data, there's a item on slide 5, and I have it broken out in a larger platform so you can see the data. Wayne State University Institute of Gerontology broke out Wayne County's elder population, at least from the age of 65 and older. It's the graph that I'm referring to. And you can take a moment to look at that, but it really shows that how we have to begin to think about how will we serve our older adults as the numbers grow. Eventually, they say in 2040, there will be as many older adults as children in our county. So we're trying to provide a complement to that meal, to that nutritious meal. We provide 1/3 of the nutrition recommended for one day for an individual. So how we're doing that, we're having educational resource sessions at our congregate meal sites. That brings information so people not only are, when they come out to the congregate site, they won't be isolated from information. We bring actual speakers to bring forth information from our partners, like Wayne State University's IOG, they have a presentation around fraud, prevention from scams and identity theft. And then we are going to incorporate all of our internal departments. Veterans will join the schedule to go out to these sites, and that's 40 across the county. So that sweet treat, everybody likes a sweet treat after their meal, right? I know I do. And we had that this year. We collected over 7,000 handmade hearts and were delivered to older adults across Wayne County. I want to thank all of you who were able to participate. And not only because our program only serves 34 cities in the county, the other 9, they also received hearts because Detroit Area Agency on Aging joined us in that endeavor to break down isolation. So in closing, I want to encourage you to ask individuals in your district to please come out to the congregate meal sites. Also, they have created supportive communities, and they serve nutrition with a vitamin C, which is care, and vitamin K, which is kindness, which we all need. And today on the 7th floor, as Commissioner Killeen mentioned, we have a congregate meals experience for the commissioners. And our vendor trio, also known as Valley, is here to provide you with an opportunity for you to see how our volunteers pack up or serve the congregate meal site. And again, I want to thank all of you. If I haven't had an opportunity to meet with you, I've only been here 5 months. You're on my schedule. It is my endeavor that I'll have an opportunity to talk with all of you. And thank you again for your kindness.
Thank you so much, Ms. Whitmer Davis. We appreciate you, and thank you for all that you're doing for our seniors. This is great information that we should all be able to share in our communities. Of course, it's not for Detroit and east of Detroit, but for the remainder communities that Wayne County actually serves with our seniors. This is good data to have and to present to your communities. So thank you again, and I look forward to the lunch that you have prepared for us after the meeting. Any additional questions or any questions at all for our senior director? Commissioner Killeen, are you all set? Okay, thank you all so much. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item.
Report E from the Committee on Audit. There is one item listed on pages 9 and 10 of the agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Basham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one item to receive and file.
There's support? Moved and supported for the one receive and file on the Committee on Audit. Any discussion on that item? Commissioner Killeen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to mention that this item is the annual work plan that the Auditor General presents to the committee. So you can look through the report to see what the upcoming audits are as we go through the year. So people might want to look at that, see what, maybe what committees you're on that audits are going to be affecting. But please take a look at the overall audit plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner
And Madam
Basham.
Chair, we're just going to look at everything in the county, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Any other comments or discussion on the audit report? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item.
Here on Report F from the Committee on Government Operations, there are 3 items listed.
Commissioner Martha G. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 items. Item 1, I would have the motion to receive and file, and items 2 and 3 to be voted on.
Moved and supported. Any discussion on the government operations report? Any discussion on government operations? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
All right, next item, please.
Upcoming committee and task force meetings are listed on pages 10 and 11 of the agenda.
Okay, please note all of the meetings, and there's a senior citizens and veterans at 12 o'clock. So we'll probably have people to eat in the small room so they can make way for that committee meeting. But note all of the meetings for next week. If there are any changes, please alert the clerk. Next item.
Public comments.
Anyone from the public here to address the Wayne County Commission? Anyone from the public to address the Wayne County Commission? Any public comments? Hearing none. Next item.
New business, there is none listed. We are moving to testimonial resolutions and certificates of appreciation. There are 10 items listed on pages 11 and 12 of the agenda.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the testimony resolutions?
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Thank you. Next item, please.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
We are on memoriams. There are 6 names listed.
Okay, we have 6 names. Any discussion on any of those listed? Or Commissioner Vice Chair Ware?
Yes, I would like to ask Commissioner McCormick, Baker McCormick, can I go on? Have you already prepared, Tyrone? I text you, but you, may I add my name on the memoriam? Thank you.
Any additional discussion or anyone else who would like to be lifted up? Commissioner Marecki?
I hope this is appropriate. I know Melissa Daub was going to put a name in today, so she is sick, so is it all right if I put a name in for her? Melissa McLaughlin, who's a longtime Republican activist in Canton who died last night, and I know she was going to do that because she told me she was going to add that name in.
Thank you. We'll make sure that name gets to the clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments? Hearing none, if we could all please rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item.
Considerations.
Are there any reconsiderations? Next item.
Remarks by members.
Remarks by members. Are there any remarks by members? Commissioner Basham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been making an effort downriver to talk to all my police chiefs, Wayne County sheriffs, Secondary Road Patrol, the state police, over 15 judges, to go after specifically texting and driving I think as a public official, we have an obligation. Everybody I see, not everybody, I'll be more realistic with my words. Probably 50% of the people I see driving on the highway is usually driving and texting. And so if you save one life through this effort, it's a violation of state law, but we're not getting enforcement. And it's a shame that we're not getting enforcement, because what's happened to the state of Michigan over the last number of years is the state gets the money if you write a ticket for a truck, if you write a ticket for traffic and stuff. So people are writing impeding traffic and parking when actually people are driving, or seatbelt violation when people, because the locals can keep the revenue. It's more about revenue than it is public safety. And quite frankly, it should be about public safety. So you see the reflex from the local communities, but this is a state issue, and it should be addressed on a state level. We have lobbyists in Wayne County that should address that. We should have enough revenue coming back to the county and the cities to actually have the police officers actually do their job and talk about public safety. And public safety is texting and driving, changing lanes without using a turn signal, never knowing what your four-way flashers are for, and maybe stop somebody from rearing you. The things that we're not doing in this county, in this state, and the local communities should be addressed by folks like us. So quite frankly, if you get a chance to talk to your local judges, your police chiefs, and your state legislators, we need revenue to be able to have public safety in our communities, all communities, not just the big ones. The small communities can't afford to have a police officer actually looking to enforce texting and driving. But that's just one of many. But anyway, I would encourage members to see me after the meeting if they want more information. Thank you.
Have you established or written a resolution to that point?
And that's the case. It's on its way. Thank you.
Thank you. And we can use that for leverage in the House and the Senate for a statewide law. Thank you. Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to Commissioner Basham's point in reference to texting and driving, I have been working on a youth council, a Wayne County Youth Council, and many of you I have spoke to about it. And that is one of the things that I think we could have our youth work on. They can lobby our elected officials once they get an understanding of how things work here. So yes, I totally agree with you, Commissioner Basham, and I think the Youth Council could work towards that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Very important topic, and I think a lot of times it starts here at the local level and we can push it up to the state level. And thank you for your efforts with the Youth Council. That should be something that our young people, to get them engaged civically, is missing sometimes in school, that we can maybe be that gap to get them engaged in local government. Commissioner Marecki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. Myself, Commissioner Dobb, Commissioner Bell, and Commissioner Scott were all able to go to the NACO conference in Washington, D.C. this week. And that's the first time I've been to anything. So I just wanted to highlight a couple things because you might find it interesting and may want to go in the future. First of all, if you're with Commissioner Bell, you're introduced to everybody across the country. She knows like everybody in that group. And the second one is Commissioner Scott, people that were walking by Commissioner Scott that knew her from all different kinds of aspects of her life. So it was interesting. But NACO really is a bipartisan group. And I was actually surprised how bipartisan it really is. And I attended a lot of the committee meetings, which were very interesting, with various resolutions. One interesting one that I attended was the assistant to the mayor of DC came forward and asked for a resolution. These are resolutions that are prepared way in advance. Asked for a resolution to make DC its own state. So there was a lot of discussion on that, and it actually got it failed. The resolution did, which is, I think, doesn't happen very often, because they brought in someone to tell them what to do if a resolution fails. So it was a very interesting discussion, and it narrowly failed, but I think there was a lot of disappointment from the mayor's office. We had a lot of government officials come in, from the Secretary of Housing, the Secretary of Interior. A lot of the president's staff groups would come into smaller groups. There was a lot of talk on the coronavirus. As I was hacking my guts out half through the whole thing, going, oh, people probably think I have it. So we got a lot of information on that, a lot of breakout sessions. Yeah, and you know, the thing about NACO too, a lot of their resolutions coming forward are things that we're dealing with here. Mental health in the jails, the Medicaid problem in the jails with prisoners coming in that haven't even been found guilty. So there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of interest. I know you're all gonna hate this part, but the President of the United States actually addressed us with thousands of people. It was a huge turnout. He's the first president since Bill Clinton that came to address NACO. And when the NACO president addressed him, she said this was the first president ever that had opened up the communication between the White House and the counties that's ever happened before. And they really have a focus on this. So that was really good news. He was very receptive to the audience on some of the things that they were concerned about. The Michigan contingent was able to meet with our senators, actually meet with them and not their staffers. Their staffers were there. So we brought up especially the jail issues that we have. So that was very interesting. I think they each spent about a half hour with us. Yep. And very receptive. So it's a really good conference, and I think you get a lot out of it. So I just wanted to mention that. They have that yearly. And, you know, you go up to Capitol Hill in a bus and you meet with all your either congressional people or senators. And they really do listen because you're from their area. So I just wanted to say it was a great, I came away with a lot of information, a lot of ideas too. It's fun to talk to people across the whole country. I mean, you've got the cowboys out west in their big cowboy hats all the way to the east. So it's very interesting to see how counties work. And one more thing, we are very blessed in this county. There are counties that don't have staff, they don't have attorneys, they don't have anybody. So I really I always appreciated all of you, but you really appreciate it after you talk to different people. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Terry. And it was very wonderful to see you as a first-time attendee, as well as Commissioner Scott as a first-time attendee. And Melissa, it was wonderful because, as you stated, you meet people from California to New York and all parts in between. And as they say, if you've been to one county, you've been to one county, because all counties across the country are different. However, when this group gets together, we focus on those things that are common to all of us. Infrastructure, jail reform, those things are common across all counties across the country. So it's really neat to see people, meet people, form relationships. If there's an issue going on here in Wayne County, I can call someone in Cook County to see, you know, how they solve that problem, and vice versa. So I encourage all of you, if your schedule permits, to either attend the legislative conference in DC, which is every February, March-ish, and then the annual conference in July, and that varies locations every year. So thank you, commissioners, for attending. I hope it was beneficial to you, and you see why I enjoy going to bring back information that would benefit our county. Thank you. Remarks by Commissioner Hayes.
Thank you. Madam the Chair, yesterday we attended Raleigh at the airport, and the chairman, Alicia Bell, and my colleague, Commissioner Clark Coleman, and myself was there. Then the governor showed up to support the SEIU union to have the right to organize and to have the right to increase the minimum wage or pay wage to $15 to be able to keep up with the cost of living and have a decent time with their own family. So I think it was very successful rally, loud and clear. And if you was there and listen to some of the members' story, how they live in, it touched your heart to hear that in the United States of America, to have people living in the minimum. So I would like to see if the commission open to have resolution to support them for fighting for their right to have a decent wages and negotiate for benefit. I think it's the right thing to do, and I hope we could have a resolution signed by all commissioners to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Look forward to you getting that together and bringing that before us. Okay. Thank you. You know, if you say it, you got to do it.
Yes.
Thank you. Any additional remarks by members? Any additional remarks by members? Commissioner Colleen, what time, or Ms. Davis, what time will lunch be ready? It's ready now, okay. So we're a little early, so if you have a chance to grab something, that would be wonderful. And hearing no other remarks by members. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Baidoon.
Very quickly, Madam Chair, in this era of the coronavirus and practicing safe handshakes, I'd like to demonstrate to the commissioners what Jim Toth and I started doing in order to promote healthy practices.
Please.
Come on, Jim.
We have show and tell, all right. No, turn the other way so I can see. Oh. So you all stole that from Kid and Play, you know that, right? For those. We appreciate that you all saw the old Kid and Play house music, house party. Thank you, Commissioner, for that. And I'll say one more thing. While in D.C., I was elected secretary of the Next Gen organization. Next Gen is an organization at NACO, one of the affiliate organizations for either those who are young in age, young at heart, or young to NACO. And I guess at this point, I'm at the young at heart portion of my life. But I was grateful to be appointed secretary of that organization, and I continue to serve as vice chair of the Justice and Public Safety Committee, which is the committee that I chaired last year. I stepped down from that when I became chair of the commission because I wanted to make sure I focus on chairmanship here rather than the chair of that prestigious committee in NACO. But it was a good showing, and I look forward to us getting more information. And speaking of the virus, the CDC, they did come and speak to us, which was wonderful to have at least 2 presentations in different organizations about the coronavirus. That was very, very helpful. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you. I was just wanted to thank you for sending it to all of us, the information from the CDC.
Yes.
If anybody, it should be.
I think I forwarded that presentation to the
Right.
entire commission. Exactly.
It was a great one, because even the president said, all we have to do is go to work and it'll be over. He did. He said that last night.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all I can say.
And you know, and a lot of them are saying it's for older, but children are susceptible to it also. So everybody, right. But they were saying it's just for us old folks.
Well, now we have a new greeting that Commissioner Baidoon has shared with us, so now we know how to greet each other and try not to trip while doing it. Commissioner Maricki.
Thank you for recognizing me again. They did come out with a big meeting yesterday, just so you know, that they're collecting statistics throughout everywhere where this virus is going. It's really hitting elderly in like homes and people that are compromised health-wise to begin with. So they're starting to see more of a pattern now. This was last night, that where this is kind of hitting people. So just for your information, that, I mean, everybody's susceptible to it, but it is more like a flu, although it travels a lot faster and it stays on surfaces longer. But they're really looking at nursing homes and places where people are compromised already, that's who's ending up in organ failure with this. So just so you know that.
Thank you for that. And one more thing, the CEO's office here had a meeting with the other electeds, the countywide electeds, of those who are in front of the public regularly, the clerk's office, register of deeds, treasurer's office, and they have requested additional gloves for those employees who would like to stay protected, hand sanitizer, and additional cleaning services just to make sure that they're wiping up the services nightly. So we're doing our part here in Wayne County to keep our employees safe as well, those especially who see the public on a regular basis. So, all right, anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn? All right, thank you, motion, what's it called? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, Joey. No agenda, that was good.